Hi everyone, welcome to the Whiteleyverse with me, Connor Whiteley, for another daily short story. Now, before I start today's story, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content, and the engagement really helps the Whiteleyverse with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to buy this short story and any of my other fiction, then they're available from all major ebook retailers and at your local bookstore and local library if you requested, and you can order paperback copies from Amazon. Now, here's today's short story. I hope you enjoyed just as much as I did writing it.
A horrible way to go. Kendra O'Connor, retired detective, hated this freezing cold morning as she stood on top of a large hill on the outskirts of London. The large hill was home to a graveyard, and Kendra really didn't want to be here. She hated everything about this place. From the rows upon rows upon rows of horrible gravestones, to the dead plants, to the grumpy-looking caretakers that walked around. Kendra wasn't really sure why the caretakers were there in the first place. There were so many dead plants and overgrown patches of grass that the caretakers clearly didn't do too much. Or maybe she was just being too harsh on them. After all, Kendra was in the far back part of the graveyard, far, far away from any of the recent graves, and that was where the people with the money would go. From what she remembered from her grandparents' deaths, they were buried, and their plot was maintained for about 2 decades before her parents stopped paying. After that, Kendra didn't know what happened to their graves. As far as she knew, they were abandoned or even given over to someone else to use. The smell of fresh pine, fresh coffee from Kendra's large travel mug, and damp filled her nose as she watched the team tens of meters in front of her. Kendra watched the tech team in their little white suits continue to carefully dig up the grave that the chief of police had allowed her and her friends to do as part of their investigation. Kendra was really looking forward to using the mini crane that was next to the team. She'd heard of the techs using it to raise the dead, or coffins, before, but she really wanted to see it. In retirement, it was always the small things that made Kendra smile. It was less than a week since Kendra had joined the special task force of retired detectives to solve cold cases, and she loved it. She loved how she still got to solve crimes, spend more time with her family, and still help out those in need. Before she had joined the task force, Kendra didn't realize how much retirement was annoying her and making everyone around her miserable. Kendra didn't actually know whether to be pleased her family and husband jumped up with joy when she told them about the task force, or annoyed at them for wanting her gone. But they loved her and Kendra loved them, and at least working with the task force would give her a purpose again. As Kendra listened to the techs carefully digging and talking away and the wind gently howling past her, she smiled when an elderly man in a thick black overcoat, black gloves and black hiking boots walked up next to her. She loved seeing retired Detective Jeff Long again. He was the person who had recruited her for the task force, and this past week he had been wonderful to Kendra, giving her a few cases, and he had been extremely supportive of her ideas. After decades of serving in the Met Police, having a man like her ideas and actually allow her to solve cases was refreshing, rather wonderful really. Then Kendra felt a short little arm wrap round her on the other side, where an elderly 70-something woman with long gray hair hugged her. Kendra loved seeing Patricia too. Over the past week, they had gotten really close and spent many nights laughing about the other police officers they served with, recalling their favorite cases and even comforting each other with stories of sexism and other things it was too hard to talk to others about. "Have they found anything yet?" Jeff asked. Kendra just shook her head. She had been here with the techs since first light, and they had been digging for at least 2 hours. Which 2 hours in the freezing cold was not a great idea for Kendra's old joints, but she wanted to be here when the body was discovered. Kendra wasn't sure if she was right about the cold case, but when Jeff gave her the case of Mrs. Jessica Stone's disappearance 15 years ago, Kendra had started investigating, and somehow it led her here. Jessica Stone was a wonderfully warm and compassionate woman who worked in a youth charity in the heart of London. She went to leave her office one night, and she was never seen again. Kendra had to admit the original investigation was amateurish to say the least. There were tens of leads that weren't followed up, from angry neighbors to abusive exes, and even some arguments with the angry youths that she worked with. After a day of tracking those various leads down, Kendra wasn't impressed with how little police work the officers had done 15 years ago. Kendra had already learned a great deal about the disappearance. A few days before the disappearance, Jessica had received at least 10 phone calls from a mystery man, but when Kendra caught up with the caller, he explained how he was searching for his 2 sons that had also disappeared, now found thankfully, and Jessica had been helping him. The only reason he called was because he was too eager for Jessica to find something. Kendra supposed she could understand that, if anything ever happened to her children, she would hunt down the person and make them pay, but she was a cop. She knew other people didn't have that much, which was why she always tried to keep families informed on her cases. Some families were more patient than others. But the 2 other missing children caught Kendra's attention, so she investigated their disappearances, and like the father had said, they had been found in a car, and the kidnapper had been charged. Yet it all seemed that Jessica had been involved in finding the information that led to the guy's capture and arrest, so it dawned on Kendra to see what else might this Jessica Stone looked into. Of course, the original officers hadn't even considered that. Thankfully, and by some strange miracle, her laptop, which was the only thing the original officers kept in storage, was still there. So Kendra searched and found a complaint filed against her second-in-command by a group of children. Kendra couldn't understand the complaint because it was written in legalese, and even after decades on the force, there was plenty of legal things she still didn't understand. But thankfully, Patricia was great about legal stuff. After getting Patricia to translate it for her, Kendra learned that the group of children had accused the second-in-command of stealing their clothes, money, and pillows until they did a certain task. The certain task wasn't listed, and from Jessica's notes she couldn't do anything because it was just hearsay. Especially since the children had all their stuff back, and nothing looked damaged, and there were no witnesses. Kendra was hardly impressed about that, and that really annoyed her, that it seemed like Jessica was just going to let this person get away with it. Some of Kendra's friends would probably call her judgmental, but it infuriated her the amount of times children were dismissed as telling the truth, because they were too young. Thankfully, before Kendra closed the laptop, she had found paperwork showing Jessica was going to pay the second-in-command off and make him leave the charity. But that was where it got interesting for Kendra. She always loved the good guys winning and making sure bad people couldn't do bad things anymore. But the second-in-command, a Mr. Gary Blackman, was still at the company to this day. In fact, he was in charge. To non-police people, Kendra knew that might sound normal or perfectly reasonable, because surely Jessica could have just changed her mind at the last minute, then disappeared. That was definitely what the police commissioner thought at first. Except if Kendra's long career had taught her anything, it was things in the real world were rarely that simple. It was far more likely this Mr. Blackman had something to do with the disappearance. And that was why Kendra was here now. "Remind me why we're here?" Jeff asked as he yawned. Kendra smiled. "I told you about Mr. Blackman, right?" They both nodded. "Good. It turns out his wife works at a funeral director's, and there hadn't been a funeral arranged around the time of the disappearance." Jeff shrugged. So I checked, and all of a sudden there was a funeral a week after the disappearance. It wasn't scheduled in advance. It just appeared in their diary overnight, Kendra said. "Like they needed to hide a body, hun," Patricia said. "Exactly. I contacted all the graveyards in London, and God, that took ages. Then I managed to find the same funeral directors shipped a coffin for burial here on the day of the funeral," Kendra said. "Why didn't you just check the records on the funeral directors?" Jeff asked. Kendra's eyes rose. "I did. The records were missing. "Oh," Jeff said. "Are the techs almost done?" Kendra shrugged, and the three of them started to walk over to the techs in their little white suits. She was impressed that in 2 hours they had almost dug out the entire coffin, and they were getting ready to raise it. "Detectives, I was about to call you," a tall woman said in her white suit. "Raise it." A loud mini crane started up, and Kendra smiled as she watched the coffin rise out of the ground. The more sensitive part of her took a few steps back, as if the body of Jessica Stone was going to jump out and attack her. Kendra really had to stop watching horror films at night. "Detectives, we can open this here or back at the lab." "Your choice," the woman asked. Kendra looked at Jeff. "I'm lead detective here." Would opening it here damage the evidence?" Jeff asked. The woman cocked her head. "Probably. But my boss wouldn't be happy if I bring back an empty coffin to the lab, taking up his precious space." Kendra nodded, and that was something that she liked about being part of the cold case task force. She didn't have to deal with any of the paperwork, politics, or any other annoying parts of being a cop. She could just do her job and not worry about a boss. "Open it up," Jeff said. As the techs unsealed the coffin, Kendra felt her stomach tighten as she waited to see what was inside. She hoped it wasn't anything too gruesome, especially after watching that horror film last night. The woman, who was presumably the tech team leader, simply walked away and said, "Over to you now. This is beyond my skills. I'll call my boss." Kendra, Jeff, and Patricia walked over, and Kendra covered her nose as the smell of mummified flesh threatened to overwhelm her. She was slightly glad the mummified body had been preserved so well, but Kendra still wanted to be wrong. Kendra knew it was silly, but a small part of her wanted to have Jessica Stone run away, and she was perfectly alive somewhere, enjoying her life. But no, Kendra instantly recognized her long, smooth face and her characteristically long blonde hair. Jessica Stone was dead. "I've called in an active detective, and they'll handle the rest. I've sent them your notes, and Mr. Blackman and his wife will be arrested," Jeff said. Kendra nodded, but still frowned as she hadn't realized how much she wanted Jessica Stone to be alive. "You did great, Kendra. I'm proud of you," Jeff said, gently rubbing her shoulder. "Thanks," Kendra said. "Come on, hun, I'm going to Ma Kid's house today. It's my son's 50th, come along. They'll love to meet you." Kendra was about to say no when Patricia placed a cold, wrinkly finger on her lips. "You need to be amongst the living today. Bring ya husband, hun." Kendra nodded and smiled. She watched Patricia slowly jump up and walk quickly, or as quickly as her 70-year-old body would let her, over to Jeff to tell him the good news. Before Kendra followed them, she looked back at the tech team and the body. Patricia was right. Kendra didn't need to dwell on the victim's death. She had solved it, and now Jessica Stone could get closure and revenge on the people who did this to her. And without Kendra, that never would have happened. That made her smile. She really was doing some good here. So Kendra started to walk towards Patricia, who was getting into her car, and Kendra dialed her husband. Because if being a cop for so long had taught her anything, it was the dead needed to be avenged and protect and serve. But the living needed cops too. Be it as a wife, a mother, or a friend. And that was what Kendra was going to do today. No matter what.
Welcome back, everyone. It's me again, Connor Whiteley. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's story, because I flat out love writing, creating stories and sharing them with you. If you really enjoyed today's story, then please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content, and the internet engagement really helps the Whiteleyverse with the YouTube algorithms. And if you want to buy this short story or any of my other fiction, then they're available from all major ebook retailers, and you can get them from your local library if you requested, and you can order the paperback copies from Amazon, your local bookstore or local library if you request it. Lastly, if you want to support the channel on a one-off basis, then you can now buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ConnorWhite. Also, if you know anyone who would enjoy today's story, then please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the channel. So, thanks for watching the Wiley Verse, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.